The first week of March, I assess the strength of all my colonies. I count small colonies as a 1, medium-sized clusters as a 2, and large 8 to 10 frames as a 3. All the colonies that are graded as a 3 will get a second box added around the third week of March, and that's what we're doing in this video. As I open this box, you'll see that this is what I would call a 3. I've got, for the most part, 10 frames of bees all across the bottom, and in the 1-inch bee space I create with my inner covers for winter. The addition of the second box is critical because this keeps the bees from swarming. Right now, this colony already has 3 or 4 frames of capped brood. Where I'm located in northeast Indiana, my bees started first laying about the first week of February. I'm inspecting the inner cover for the queen. It's quite common at this time of year for me to find a queen up in the inner cover because there's such a large amount of bees. My winter inner covers I make have a 1-inch bee space, and they'll quite often fill that with comb in the fall, and they'll fill that with honey. And then in the spring, that's usually the first honey that they use up, and the queen sometimes will go up and lay eggs in that. So I'm just removing any of the comb at the top of the frames before I put the second box on, and I'm just inspecting to make sure that there's no queen in the inner cover. I will save all this wax and put it in a bucket, and then I will melt it down at a later date into wax blocks. The second box I'm going to add contains 4 frames of drawn comb and then 3 frames of just foundation on the outsides. The 4 frames of drawn comb gives an immediate place for the queen to come up and start to lay in, and then the foundation on the outsides will get filled in, which will give me additional resources of drawn comb. I'm also adding a beetle blaster at this time. This is something I typically have not done in the spring because our winters are cold enough and our bees are broodless long enough that typically I don't see just but a few hive beetles in a couple of the hives. But this year there has been a tremendous amount of hive beetles in some of my hives, so I'm just going to go ahead and put a beetle blaster in them to just try to make sure that I control the hive beetle. In a few days I'll come back and put a 1-gallon pail feeder on this colony with some light sugar syrup just to help them make sure that that foundation gets drawn out. In a couple weeks I'll be back to this colony to take out 4 frames of brood to either create a mating nuke, create a split, boost some colonies. Whatever is needed at that time, I'll use that additional brood for. I'll put 4 more frames back in after I take those out. The queen will come back in. I'll probably take another split, and I may come back and take a 3rd split, just depending on the bees. At that point, I'll push the queen back down to the single box, put the queen excluder on, and then that first deep will then just become my first honey super. And then that first deep honey super then will provide me all the drawn comb to then in the spring do what I'm doing here by doubling up the singles that are bigger. In the next video we'll transition the smaller colonies.